If you're an Android user and you are looking for a new app to download your podcasts, I recommend you check out the Podcast Republic app. Go to the Google Play Store, download the Podcast Republic app. It's a fantastic app. You get all of your stuff right in one place on your Android devices. You search for the show that you like, you make it a favorite, so please make Dissecting the 80s one of your favorites, and it downloads them for you, and you'll have them all just a click away. Once again, that's the Podcast Republic app for your Android devices. Hey folks, we are entering the holiday season, and I don't know about you, but it is tough to shop for gifts. So if you're wondering like, oh my gosh, what should I get for my favorite podcasting duo? That's easy. You could just subscribe to our Patreon. In fact, if you jump on now at the $5 level, you get a bonus episode right away. You thought I was selling you some product, I think probably by the tone of my voice, but I'm hoping that like this bit of me...
I mean, in a way you are.
No, I know, but I was doing like pitchman voice, expecting me to be like 1-800 or edible or
like used cars.
Yes. There's going to be so many bleeps in this. Yeah, we have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/dissectingthe80s. There are a lot of really great rewards, and we're very, very close. At the time of this recording, which is October, we're very, very close to unlocking a bonus episode for all supporters. I was under $20 today. So if you haven't yet done it, please do that. Also, thank you to listener Lynn for jumping on the board.
Ooh.
That's our mother this late in the Patreon supporter game. So all of you out there who subscribed already beat our mom to the punch.
Yes, you did.
Welcome to Dissecting the 80s. I am Trip Lano, one half of the Mega Podcasting Powers. And with me, as always, a man who knows by the time you've gotten to the third film in your franchise, you've got to rejigger what you do in your movies. The Macho Mandrew.
Andrew Lano. And this was a chore to watch for me. It's like 20 minutes too long.
It's indeed 20 minutes, if not 30 minutes too long. This is available for free legally on YouTube. It is because Creed 2 comes out soon. It's not exactly lined up, but I wanted an excuse to do a Rocky movie, so we're doing it now. I think Creed comes out over Thanksgiving. This is Rocky 3, so you know what that means.
We gotta go back. We gotta go dissect the 80s. It's your... Something's gotta be done about your...
When the Mega Powers explode.
I'm talking about the 80s. Oh, yeah.
Great Scott!
Cream of the crop. Oh, yeah.
Mega Powers, yeah!
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
That was a Sylvester Stallone joke. I just want to be very clear that I wasn't being offensive to anyone but Sylvester Stallone.
Yes, indeed. That was a narrow dig. A dig at just the guy who also wrote and directed this one.
You got lightning in a bottle once. Let's just put that bottle on a shelf and not try and make more bottles.
So this starts with a grunting audio montage. It's just like a static shot of a title belt and just grunting sounds. And then we get to our montage. But the first part is like almost porn outtakes. It's like...
I mean, a lot of the Rocky movies that I've seen have been borderline porn.
But it's so weird to just have the like... Pornderline. It's so weird to just have those grunts in there. Where it's just like...
There's also a lot of crop tops, a lot of short shorts, and a lot of
everyone in this movie
men.
Dresses like you.
Yes.
Every single person in this movie, every man in this movie except Paulie dresses like you. It's
and
crazy.
Thank God for that. No body shaming. I just hate Paulie.
Crop tops, tank tops, short shorts, high socks. It's just like your wardrobe.
It's my aesthetic.
Your entire wardrobe is from 1983 boxing films.
Actually, I mean, the 1980s in general, if you really look at it.
There are at least 3 outfits in this movie that I, like, top to bottom, tip to tails, have seen you wear.
Yeah, I noticed one of them on Apollo Creed.
Yeah, it's buck wild. So we start with a previously on Rocky montage, as you would expect, and they catch us up to the fact that, Rocky has won the title, and it's the ugliest championship belt I've ever seen
It's
in
not
anything.
memorable by any stretch.
But it looks like a piece of leftover bunting that they rolled up into a belt and stapled plates to. It's very cheap.
Yeah, I guess.
It's not like a leather strap. It's like a weird saggy cloth that's red, white, and blue. It's a sad belt. It's a sad title
It's
belt.
basically the Spirit Halloween generic version of a title belt.
Indeed.
It ties in the back. It doesn't actually buckle.
Exactly. It needed to be a leather strap and a much nicer looking belt for sure.
So basically, everything about it needed to change.
I mean, yeah, I could say that about most of this movie, though.
Yeah. So it's funny that this is the movie where the three iconic Rocky things, I guess, come from, which to me is Eye of the Tiger,
Yeah.
the statue. I guess also because I live in Philly,
Yeah.
that's
Put a pin in the statue because I have some things that I want to
Oh,
bring up. We'll get
me
there.
too.
We'll get there.
and third Rocky in the American flag shorts.
And additionally, I pity the fool, the catchphrase from Mr. T.
I assumed that was his catchphrase before this movie.
This is his first role.
Wait, he wasn't on the A-Team first? This was
Nope.
his first?
This, I believe, comes before the 18.
Fully assumed that this was just kind of stunty casting because we were at the third.
I spent like a half an hour researching this today, and now you've made me second guess myself. So just give me 1 second. But I did a ton of research on this movie. I fell down some Wikipedia.
It's technically not his first role, but it was before the A-Team.
Okay, that's what I thought. Because the thing I read today said he got cast in the movie because Stallone saw him on a television show called
Twilight Theater,
Hold on.
Silver Spoons.
No, it was a reality show
Oh.
where he was a boxer, or he was boxing on it. So it was called America's Toughest Bouncer. It was a segment of an NBC show called Games People Play. Stallone saw him and originally was like, oh, I love this guy, I'm going to put him in my movie. And so he gave him a couple lines originally, and then as I don't know if they became friends or what, but it eventually evolved to oh no, he's going to be the lead.
Which is okay, so that changes a lot of my perspective because I assumed it was stunt casting and they were like,
Right.
we don't think Mr. T can really act, so let's just make him the most one-dimensional, boring villain, which annoyed me because I was like, he's one of three people in this movie that A, I can understand 90% of the time, and B is feels like there's something compelling under that. He's charming. Mr. T is very charismatic. And I want to listen to him. I want to see him do stuff. And I was like, why he's so boringly written and one-dimensional, and I was like, come on, we couldn't got another Apollo situation where he's cool and hip and is a character.
Right. This whole movie, every single character in this movie, it reminds me of that old joke that people... I've never actually been a Simpsons watcher, but I know this bit because I've heard people repeat it ad nauseum, where it's we want them to talk about Poochie, and if they're not talking about Poochie, they should be thinking about talking about Poochie, and the audience should be wondering, where's Poochie? And if you put Rocky in there, that is this movie in a nutshell.
Yeah.
This movie needs a Rocky test, where it's I don't think any two characters in this movie ever have a conversation that's not about Rocky, or that Rocky's not a part of the conversation. This whole movie is reverse shot of Rocky and other people having conversations, and when he's not in them, they're talking about Rocky. The whole thing is there's no other story that's allowed to happen because it's only the narrative about Rocky that we get to see.
And that's why I think it's super boring because he is an unintelligible, he's like Swamp Thing.
But it's also, the problem is there's a story of Rocky that the audience wants to see, and it's Rocky being this lovable schlub who overachieves. And so the first movie is about him just trying to go the distance with Apollo, and in the second movie it's, oh my god, he overcame all of the odds and he won the title. But now this movie is trying to be a meditation on what happens after you've achieved success and how do you redefine success for yourself after you've achieved it. And that is a really interesting story, but that is not the one that they tell effectively in this movie.
No, and I just kept saying if Rocky was played by a competent actor, I would be so much more like if this was a Chris Evans type, like a good actor and like I believed that he could be a physical like a boxer. I'm into it. I'm here for it. But there's no pathos with Sylvester Stallone.
Honestly, I don't even know that it's Sylvester Stallone. I think it's because Sylvester Stallone wrote, acted, and directed this movie. Wrote, directed, and starred in this movie.
Oh, I did not know I didn't realize he directed too.
Yeah. So you can't have. There's no one on set to be like, "Hey, this stinks." When he's the writer, director, and the lead, it's like there's no barrier, right? There's no ability to go in and fix things like that, and so. I would argue that in the first Rocky, which is not directed by him, his performance is legitimately great. And then even crazier enough, he's awesome in Creed and was like very well deserving of the Oscar nomination he got. So he's capable of it, but I don't think he can direct it out of himself.
No, because I also feel like this is firmly in, like, I don't know why. I mean, I do know why. They're very similar types. I equate him with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, they're both the same amount, like the same percentage easy to understand. They're both jacked like marble, chiseled out of marble gods. And they're both in generally pretty easy one-note stuff in this period.
Agreed.
And so my little lizard brain goes to the Arnold like quotes from Predator where he's like, I think the movie was successful because the man was so big and muscly. Right. And I'm like, that's just to me. I'm like, oh, that's probably what Sylvester Stallone thinks. Like, he survived the movie. He was he punched real good, and that's what people want to see the whole time.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think Stallone is an incredibly versatile actor, but I think he can do one thing really good, and it's Rocky type characters. But I don't know that his direction of himself was poor in this for sure.
Yes.
But let's get the train rolling, and we can come back to some of these things as we go. So we do a montage of spinning newspapers that's just like Rocky exclusively winning his boxing matches by knockout, which is hilarious.
And the Muppet Show. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, why aren't we watching the Muppet Show instead?
So, funnily enough, that's the actual clip of when Stallone guested on the Muppet Show, and they just had Jim Henson go back and cut in Rocky Balboa instead of Sylvester Stallone. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of clever. But so he literally, like, I'm not a big boxing fan. I don't really like combat sports.
I don't think I could watch. I don't even pay-per-view, but not even in person at all. I don't think I could watch a boxing match. I think it would be too visceral.
It's less so because it's not like this at all. So I've watched a couple, like, over the course of life, like getting invited to a big match or something like that. I would say I've watched maybe 3 boxing matches ever, and that's being generous. But it's so weird to watch real boxing after you've watched movie boxing because it sounds so loud and bone crunchy and like, and when you watch it on TV, there's none of that.
Well, there's no microphone in the ring.
Right. But it also just doesn't feel as barbaric as it does in movies because in real boxing matches, there's actual strategy and there's a lot of like close up, like little punches to like find space to try to throw your big punches. And in the Rocky movies, it's just all haymakers. Like it's just swing as hard as you possibly can in the biggest possible arc you can, either uppercut or a hook. But it's just like woof, 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 and it's just these huge punches. But in reality,
logic.
You would punch yourself out in 30 seconds. Like, no one could fight like this for 15 rounds. Nobody.
Yeah, because our boxing matches are effing long, aren't they?
They can be quite long, yes.
Oh, God. We also get 2 title cards. Did you notice that?
I did. I thought that was really weird.
What was up with that?
But this montage is just exclusively Rocky winning all these fights by knockout. And he's like, on Easy Street, he's defended the title 10 times. We're supposed to get through this montage. I didn't notice it. I don't know if I was taking a note, but this montage is supposed to be 3 years worth of title defenses.
Oh, I missed that completely.
Okay, so I later learned that.
Also, I don't care. So.
Well, this is true. But we go from that to like, Paulie is at a bar and he's drunk and miserable. And we've established in Rocky IV, like half of what we talked about was Paulie being a complete shit. And he is. He sucks. He sucks hard. He's the worst.
Like garbage under your foot in an alley and you're like, ugh.
And not for nothing, but in the original movie, he's like, a supportive person and he's Rocky's friend, and he is one of Rocky's only actual friends, and introduces Rocky to Adrian, his sister, and they end up, falling in love and blah, blah, blah. And then he becomes just this bitter, jaded monster person, basically.
I don't understand. Like, as someone who I don't think I've seen Rocky 1 all the way through, and if I have, it's been a long time, I have no frame of reference for that. So all I see is just this, like, shitty, bitter, jealous, garbage, racist monster who does nothing but drink and complain and not take anything as seriously as it needs to be.
Agreed.
And he just needs a punch. He needs a punch in the face and, like, get out of my house, sober up, and come back when you're cleaned up.
Yeah, or, hey, I'm going to put you in rehab or something. Like, you need to go to an AA meeting. You're a mess.
Yeah.
But what happens instead is he's at this bar, and the bartender's like, hey, Paulie, give Rocky our best, would you? And it's just this, like, innocuous little comment, and he's like, I've been coming here for years. How about you give me your best? And he's, like, wandering drunk. But there's this amazing scene where he goes into the arcade, and he's looking around as if it's Aladdin entering the Cave of Wonders.
I was like, is this about to be The Wizard? Because, like, I'm not mad if this movie is half The Wizard and half a Rocky movie.
If it's, or, like, Paulie is a savant at some weird video game, and it causes, like, friction between him and Rocky.
Yeah, he's got a light shooter, like a light arcade game. I'm down for that.
Yeah. But no, he's walking through this arcade, and it seriously looks like when you set a child loose in an arcade and give him a bag of quarters. Like, it's pure pure
joy.
Yeah, pure joy. And then he sees the Rocky pinball machine, which I'm not sure why that would exist, to be quite honest with you, but okay.
I mean, I guess in the mythos, in the kayfabe, as it we'll use some, wrestling terms.
In the kayfabe.
In the kayfabe.
Yeah. This is basically a wrestling movie, so of all the movies we've ever covered,
if it was a wrestling movie, I would be into it, because Clubber Lang is more WWE than he is boxing, and it annoys me that, whatever, we'll get there. Because it's supposed to be Philly, right? Like, this movie
is Philly.
Mostly set in Philly, right?
It's 100% set in Philly. The big fight takes place at the Spectrum.
The first time.
Yeah, the big fight is at the Spectrum.
The second one's in Madison Square Garden.
Right. But the first fight is at the Spectrum.
Okay, just to double check.
The one where he has the heart attack.
It would make sense that, they would make a Rocky. There would, like, some arcade would be like, we got the Rocky pinball game next to Gino's.
It makes much more sense that it would be like a signed Rocky poster that you can redeem your tickets for in the kayfabe of the movie.
I guess. I mean, obviously, it was just a Rocky 1 pinball machine that they just were like, we're going to use it.
It was. Yeah,
that's
it's
a thing that I don't know if every young listener knows that's a thing, that there used to be pinball machines inspired by movies. And
yes, there still are.
So a pinball machine, you're going to get a real deep cut.
Are you going to describe what a pinball machine is? Because I don't think you need to go that far. Okay.
So a pinball machine at the roller rink where you used to play hockey is the reason. It was a Stargate pinball machine. And I was like, what is this? It's covered in ancient Egypt.
I'm learning things.
Yeah, I was like, it's all this ancient Egypt stuff, and I loved ancient Egypt, so I, looked it up, and I was like, it's a movie. I want to watch this movie now. And the only reason I ever watched Stargate is because I played the pinball machine first. The moral of the story is sometimes they work as effective advertising 20 years later, 10 years later.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I still get excited when I see the Jurassic Park pinball game with that T-Rex head in there.
I want to play that.
Yeah, it's fun as hell. Well, you got to come down and come to the pinball place I keep telling you about.
Okay, will do.
Anyway, Paulie loves arcades, but he hates Rocky, so he throws his illegally snuck into the arcade booze through it, and then wakes up in jail to where Stallone is like wearing this suit again. Okay, I'm gonna pause right here. I'm sorry. This movie is 100% a wrestling movie. Stallone wearing a suit looks like every wrestler wearing a suit, where it's like, that doesn't belong on that body. Like, you look like a refrigerator loosely wrapped in an overcoat. What are we doing here? Because he's huge in this movie. He's almost like post-steroids old man huge in this movie, in fact.
Yeah.
Like muscle-wise, he's jacked. He's apparently the lowest body fat he ever had. He's only 2.8% body fat in this movie.
Honestly, everyone looks. This whole movie is just dudes at like less than 5% body fat, and I
Yep.
don't even know how to handle it.
Very vascular dudes.
Even that scene. So they later go to a predominantly, or I guess exclusively, black gym in L.A. Is it
Yeah, they go to L.A.
L.A.? It's a sea.
No
of
body
these-
fat.
No body fat, and I was just like,
It's just
what?
no body fat. None of these people have ever had a cracker.
Oh, they haven't even looked at pasta.
So he smashes this up. Rocky comes in wearing this ridiculous suit to bail him out of jail. And then they're in the garage, and Rocky is like, you're a mess. Like, you're a thing. And Paulie starts, like, raking him over the coals, being like, what have you done for me? I did everything for you. And I even introduced you to my sister. And then you moved Mickey into your house, but what do I get? And Rocky very much is like, you're like a grown-ass man with a job. Why do I have to do that? Like, get out of here.
I also
and then
appreciate
eventually,
that you're distilling this nonsense mumble
oh my god, it
conversation.
takes so long to get to the point. It's like it's shot reverse shot for like 6 full minutes of them being like, I don't know what you're saying, Paulie.
It's slurring ass Polly and marble mouth Sylvester Stallone being like, it's just getting everybody else. Where's Polly's status and stuff?
And then Rocky eventually gets to, friends don't know. They do because they want to. And it's like, okay, good sentiment there. And then Paulie's like, I'm going to punch you. And he throws a bunch of punches to which Stallone just like easily blocks. And then it's like, can you give me a job? And Stallone's like, I thought you'd never ask. Like, what is this?
And then the scene buttons with nice car. Do you have another one? You mooch.
For me.
I hate you.
Yeah, and Rocky at one point calls him a jealous, lazy bum, all of which is accurate.
100% true.
He left out racist, which is, I want to emphasize, really
Super
important.
racist.
How overtly racist this character is in this movie, and it's just not necessary. It's just not necessary.
It isn't. And like, good on the black characters for not decking the F out of this meatball.
I wanted someone to punch Paulie's fat walrus face in. I just wanted it punched in.
I didn't want it to be Apollo, because I feel like Apollo's like too good for that, but I wanted his trainer to just be like,
Yeah,
boom!
Duke. Yeah. I wanted Duke just to pop him one, like you mooch. So we cut to Rocky in bed with Adrian, master
need
of
to happen.
seduction.
This scene doesn't.
No.
I don't. It's not gross. Like, they're not boning. It's
No,
literally
it's not
just
disgusting.
like a couple in bed being
Yeah.
sweet. But there's no chemistry, and you can't understand him, and it offers nothing to the plot. And I was just like, can we move along?
My favorite part about it, though, is he's like trying to be sexy to her. He starts singing a song, and he's like, hey, drop me a beat. And she starts doing it. And he's like, no, like this. And he like gives her a beat to sing. So she's doing, it's like the equivalent of an old 60s doo-wop-y song where, you know, the backup singers are like, sha-na-na-na, sha-na-na-na. And he's like singing, and then she does her part, and they're going back and forth. And it's like, why am I watching Sylvester Stallone sing as Rocky in bed with his wife? Why is this in here? Who is this for?
This doesn't add anything.
So we find out that Rocky is wrestling, or fighting, I guess, a wrestler, because he basically invented UFC.
It drove me nuts that they were like, oh, he's going to fight a wrestler. And I was like, so are they both going to box? Are they both going to wrestle? Turns
Neither
out
is the
one of them
answer.
is wrestling and one of them is boxing.
Yes. He gets in the ring with boxing gloves on.
Like, you might as well be like, here, you with a hockey stick and ice skates are going to face off against this lacrosse player with a lacrosse stick. Have fun.
Yeah. There is the best moment of the whole movie in this scene. So Rocky comes in the ring, and then Hogan is making his way to the ring, and it's Hulk Hogan as Thunderlips.
Garbage monster Hulk Hogan.
It's just a movie full of racists. It's just a bag of
Left
racists.
and right.
It's just a bag of racists. But
The worst selling holiday toy.
get your kid a bag of racists.
That sounds like one of those toys from the Dan Aykroyd
Yes.
SNL skit. Bag of glass.
Yes.
They love it.
Yeah. But Mickey, Burgess Meredith, says to Rocky, like, hey, Bob Hope would never do this. Or no, he's like, this is crazy. Don't do this for charity. And Stallone's like, Bob Hope would do this for charity. And he's like, yeah, you're right. And it just cuts away. But there's this like beautiful moment of Mickey being like real curmudgeonly and then like wistfully thinking about Bob Hope, and he gets so happy, and it's just like such a great little moment from Burgess Meredith. Like, again, I don't know why it's in the movie, but it's just like the movie just takes a second to turn out to the audience and be like, hey, Bob Hope's a pretty cool guy, yeah? And then
Hope's
just
an
so the
okay
audience
guy.
Yeah, like I don't know why that's here, but I love it very much.
Is Garbage Monster Hulk Hogan that tall?
He used to be, he has like degenerative back things and is literally shorter now than he used to be because of
Really?
it.
Didn't know that.
That leg drop destroyed his hips and back.
Oh.
Yeah. Before I found out he was a racist monster, I had read interviews with him where he was like, I don't understand why I even thought of that. Like, my whole gimmick was having these huge arms and shoulders, and then my finishing move was a leg drop. Like, it doesn't even make sense.
That was a weird one.
But he's like, it just destroyed my, like, his hip sockets and his discs in his back. Like, all of that stuff was just ruined from years of doing that. So he was like 6'8" or 6'9", and now I think he's probably 6'4".
Okay. That makes sense. Because I've never pictured him as being tall.
But they also in this movie say he's like basically 7 feet tall, and they might have given him lifts or something. But they especially emphasize his height because Stallone is so shrimpy. Like, Stallone IRL is like 5'10", from what I understand. Maybe.
And he's wearing some heels in this movie.
Oh, for sure his boots have lifts. For sure they do.
No, there's a scene, you can see them in one scene. He like walks, he's wearing a suit. And I was like, those are definitely at least 2-inch heels.
Oh, they had like a cowboy booty type
Like a
heel on
Chelsea,
them?
yeah, like a Chelsea boot, like little lifts. And I was like, girl, I see you. I know what you're doing.
Also, can we talk about how Thunder Lips is the most obviously created by Sylvester Stallone name of a character in the history of cinema?
It's gross sounding.
But like, I don't. It's they bill him as like a sexy guy, like for you wrestling fans out there, like a Rick Rude type, like a real like, oh, I'm gonna come into town and seduce all your women and beat up all your men. Like that was the gimmick of Thunder Lips is very much like that. But it's like Thunder Lips doesn't like. Is it supposed to be like he's a good kisser? Because like it sounds like he just kisses people real forcefully. Like that's not necessarily a good thing.
I mean, based on the garbage monster that we know now,
Yeah.
Who
Accurate,
knows?
probably. Yeah, yeah.
but his hair is the grossest. He looks
He
like
actually still has all. This is all
he
real.
looks
Hogan
like
at this
Riff
point.
Raff from Rocky Horror.
It was always bad, and it never got better. Like it's very
like
plasticky,
stringy and thin
Yeah.
and dry and like
He had
dead. He's literally Riff Raff.
I assumed the bleaching just destroyed his hair.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely his hair is straw. Like you could use his hair to sweep up your floor.
Right. So they get in the ring, and Rocky's like, "Hey, why don't we just do like a little show? I'll do a little chasing, you do a little chasing. We'll do this thing, bang, bang, boom. We're out of here." And Hogan just proceeds to beat the piss out of him.
There's a 0% chance that this wouldn't have been fully scripted and staged.
Oh, for sure.
Like, because neither one of them
a
would have
comic-
lost. It would have been.
Right.
It would have been like, oh, it's a draw. Like they're both too tired to keep going.
Yeah, it would have been a time limit draw for sure. Also, I don't want to neglect to mention the guy who is the announcer for this match, who like introduces the two of them. The guy in the ring has maybe the greatest mustache I've ever seen.
I don't remember. I'll have to go back.
He has like it looks like someone who had a full beard and a mustache that like perfectly connected, and then he decided just to shave the beard off so that the mustache goes from his lip out onto his cheek for like a solid 3 inches, and it's just all beard hair that
Oh,
just
yes,
groomed
yes,
into
yes.
this yeah. So they have this huge fight. Thunder Lips literally
it's Polly with a chair.
yes. Before that, Hogan throws Rocky into the crowd, and Rocky's like frantically cutting his gloves off. And Hogan gets in the crowd and just starts wailing on people. These cops are trying to stop him, and he picks up a cop and throws him.
Stupidest, craziest thing I've ever seen.
But
It's
he also
charity. This is a charity fight.
right. But also, I love that like Stallone let his stunt double take all these wrestling bumps that like Rocky got to be. This is the only vulnerability Rocky had, is like he got beat up and then he gets, I guess he loses the match later, but he gets like suplex. It's just like a clinic of wrestling moves from Hulk Hogan on this random stunt person.
And then we're supposed to believe that Rocky lifted Hulk Hogan over his head.
Yeah, it's really surprising that works. Also,
I was like, no, he is a full 1.5 feet taller than you. A full 100 pounds heavier
In the
than
movie,
you.
they say he weighs almost 400 pounds.
Yeah, the movie says he's twice your weight. So
Literally twice, yes.
So no, buddy.
Eventually, it ends with just like a draw, and then Hogan immediately is like, hey, good game, buddy, and they take a picture together, which is very bizarre.
No one acknowledges that he's a psychopath.
Right. Cut to Rocky's mansion, and I had this thought, and I don't know if we talked about this.
I do
Well,
like his mansion.
I'm about to rag on it, so I apologize. So this is kind of coming at you, too. I don't know if we talked about this when we did Rocky 4, but Rocky's mansion is such little kid wish fulfillment of what being a rich person is like. It's like blank check.
Go on.
It's like the house is so ridiculous. It's like all these children's toys basically that Rocky has. Like there's a nice pool, of course, and the other one we see the robot and all those things. But he's driving around in this like vintage Ford vehicle, like a Model T type car with his son, and they're like at this enormous banquet table. It just looks like someone who only knows what a mansion is because they saw Disney film depictions of like raggedy old castles, and it's like, yeah, I don't know, put like a table for 30 people in it.
He's also trying to tell his son a fairy tale, and I don't know why it's the funniest thing I've ever heard. Like, it's like, an alien came down, is learning English for the first time, and is trying to relay this fairy. He's like, so therefore someone was in the big bear's bed, and therefore someone was
He says therefore like 5 times.
And
I don't know why.
In Goldilocks and the Three Bears, there's no need for the word therefore. Like
Indeed, there is not.
This is not the closing paragraph of your 5-paragraph theme.
Yes, exactly. You're not doing a thesis here.
In conclusion, Goldilocks was asleep in the bed.
And then Paulie is like, and then she went to jail, a dumb broad. And he's like, oh, not in front of the kid.
Get out of my house, Polly. Put on pants and get out of my house.
You can go anywhere as long as it's not here.
And this is where, okay, I'm gonna push my film nerd glasses up my face a little bit, up my nose. So in filmmaking, there is the diegesis, which is everything that the characters in the movie actually hear. Things on the radio, a band playing, people talking, explosions. And then there's
Normally people call this either diegetic or non-diegetic, just to use terms
non-diegetic sounds
right.
are anything the characters can't hear. The score, maybe, an omniscient narrator talking, whatever. Somehow, this movie has decided that the non-diegetic sound from the first movie is now fully diegetic sound, and there's no explanation, and it weirds me out as a film goer.
Every single person in this movie knows the theme to Rocky. It's as if the movie Rocky exists in the other Rocky. Like, Rocky the movie exists in Rocky 3, basically.
Yeah, it's like a weird scream stab situation.
Yes.
Because this high school marching band is playing the theme, and I was like, obviously they would know the theme because high school marching bands play this theme, whatever. But they shouldn't. This doesn't exist. This shouldn't exist.
Right. Also, did you notice that the first drum that they have like a tight close-up on has Mr. T written on it?
No, I didn't.
So I don't know if it was like an autograph, because it's only 3 letters. It's hard to tell if it's a signature or just like the letters are written there, right? Like It's such a short name. So it could have been like, oh, Mr. T autographed this kid's drum, but it 100%, I backed it up because it was like crystal clear. It definitely was something that like they didn't notice on the day, and now it's on high definition and you can see it.
Yeah.
And it says Mr. T right in the middle of the snare drum for some reason.
I'll have to check that out.
But this is the statue dedication at the Art Museum in Philadelphia, which is very famous in the Rocky movies because he runs up the steps in the first movie, and I'm sure it's in the second movie, although it's been so long since I've seen it, I don't know the specifics. But they open up they reveal the statue, and they're like, oh my god, Rocky's got a statue, oh my god. This is a really fun little tidbit, and we're like the perfect podcast to do this because we grew up there. So this statue, they finished the movie, and then I just imagined it going something like this, where like Stallone, it obviously didn't happen like this, but this is how I want it to have happened.
Could have.
Stallone approaches the like board of art in Philadelphia, the art commission or whatever, and is like, hey, I got these statues. Let me give you one for the museum. And the art commission is like absolutely blinded by the fact that it's Sylvester Stallone. They're like, oh, yes, sir, please, we'll take your statue. And then they try to give it to the art museum. The art museum is like, fuck that. It's an ugly statue from a shitty movie. No, thank you. And this proceeds to be a fight for 83 to 2006. 23 years they had to fight over what the hell to do with this stupid statue. I was in high school
It's
and
moved a lot.
Yes, but I was in high school and they were still fighting over this dumb statue. Like, the fact that this statue has persisted that long is just absolutely crazy. Absolutely insane.
It's a tribute to the indomitable human spirit of the underdog.
Yes, sir, it definitely does do that in the context of the film Rocky 3. But this is the United States of America in the year 1984, and we don't have anything to do with that because, again, fictional film from last year.
This is also just an ugly statue of you. So,
You do realize that you're, like, the city of Philadelphia is basically going to adopt you even though you're from New York, which is
I was going to say,
fine thing.
is he not? He's not from Philly, right?
No.
Why did he pick Philly?
Because he thought it embodied the spirit of the character, which is not wrong, but then it has just ruined, like, every sports thing from Philadelphia for the history of forever is, like, one, it's Snowballs at Santa, and two, is like the city where Rocky's from. It's like, he's not real. He's not real. It's a movie.
Rocky isn't real. He's not
He's
from
not
here.
a person. When they opened the Eagles Stadium in like the early 2000s, he was there in a jersey, like lighting the torch, basically. And I'm like, he's not. It's not a real person. He's not a Philadelphian. He's an actor.
There was not enough battery whipping from Rocky to be a real Philadelphian.
Exactly.
Also, now we got Gritty. Like, there's a lot going on in Philly that we have to like.
If you come after Gritty, we have to end this podcast.
It looks like something that would get you fired from Jim Henson's Muppet Workshop.
He is
Jesus,
a perfect
Jim, is everything
monster,
okay at home?
and I love him.
Well, apparently, so I didn't know this, but apparently, alleged. I don't know if this is true. My friend said that the NHL was like, "Hey, Flyers, you got to have a mascot," and they're like, "No, we don't want one." And they're like, "Look, everyone has a mascot. You have to have one." And they were like, "Fine, enjoy this horrifying garbage monster."
I don't think that's true. I mean, they were one of the few teams that didn't have one, but there are still teams without them. I think they just know the team is not very good, and so they're trying to get attention.
Yeah, because I was like,
Also-
I'm okay with that story. That they were like, we don't want one, so here's some scrap fabric that we found with googly eyes.
If you listeners out there haven't seen it, you should. Well, if you're not driving, Google Gritty NHL and look at a video because I think it's a little more charming on video. But like, to me, it's a perfect mascot. It's stupid. Like, they're supposed to be bad. My favorite mascots are awful looking. They're like, the Philly Fanatic is amazing. It's a gobbledygook monster.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I don't know. I guess he's been around a long time, so he's been established.
Yeah.
But also, he's like the Philly Fanatic, so him like, oh, he's just like a big fan. He's green, whatever. But like Gritty, why is his name Gritty? That's a gross name.
Gritty is the most like generic, overused term by sportscasters to describe white athletes.
Oh,
like,
really?
If you did a word cloud, white athletes are almost exclusively described as gritty. If they're not a quarterback, they're gritty. And the NHL is almost exclusively white people. So like grit is, if you read scouting reports of NHL players, grit is like probably the fifth most used term to describe someone. So it's like actually the most on brand thing they could have picked. And that is part of why I love it so much, because it's like, of course his name is Gritty. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, of course his name is Gritty. Like, of course it is. It's so stupid.
And then to me, I'm just like, what Gritty? Ew.
But I just love, he's got his tongue hanging out. He's got googly eyes. His head's bobbly. He's got all sorts of wild hair. He looks like the weird love child of Animal and the Philly Fanatic. And I just love everything about that.
Yeah, he definitely is going to knock on Animal's doorstep one day and be like,
Dad? I don't know which of those creatures is the dad. I guess maybe they're both dads. But there's definitely Philly Fanatic DNA in there because he's got the belly that wiggles.
Yeah,
the, like,
that's what I
swingable
mean.
belly, the hula hoop belly. So he's got that.
Both be dads. It can be
Yeah.
a test tube baby.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wasn't sure who, like, if Animal. I don't know the gender of Animal. I wasn't trying to gender Animal. So we both said dad as if like we had that brainwave at the same length. But I was like, I don't know why I think of Animal as a man. He's just a weird, crazy
I don't
monster.
know why. Yeah, he could be an aggressive lesbian. She could
He
be an
might
aggressive
not.
lesbian.
He could
I
be
guess,
smooth
was the
like a
sentence
Ken
I
doll
should have
down
said.
there. I have no idea.
But no, he is always going after women.
Oh, okay.
Animal is. I keep saying he as though Animal is always
Anyway,
chasing
Gritty
women.
looks like sort of like Sweetums, Animal, and the Philly Fanatic had a baby together. The three of them.
Let's not pull Sweetums into that mix.
He's got all the big floppy fur.
I guess, but that's more I see Fanatic in that.
Fanatic's fur is like a close crop. That's why I'm
it's
bringing
like
it.
a tight. It's like a nice. It's a short nap.
Yeah. Versus a shag carpet.
Gotcha.
The Fanatic is more of a Berber. If we're talking carpets, it's like a tight weave, a little bit of fuzz, but it's not sticking out too much. The animal hair is the head of Gritty, obviously, and then Sweetums has the long body fur.
Honestly, Gritty reminds me of in
I
Lab.
can't believe we're talking about Gritty for this long on an 80s movie podcast. I'm so sorry.
This movie's terrible. It reminds.
It's also just all fight scenes. There's just like nothing funny about a fight sequence, and there's 38 minutes of them in this movie.
It's not enjoyable. But he reminds me. My last piece about Gritty, and we can get back to this stupid ass movie. He reminds me of the creatures from Labyrinth that like pull their head off and like try and pull Jennifer Connelly's head off.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
if
I
you took
get
that
behind
body, like you cut the Philly Fanatic in half at the waist, and then stuck the upper half of one of those monsters from Labyrinth on there, that's basically Gritty.
He was also invented by the guy who was the original Philly Fanatic, so I feel like he should have
Really?
some street cred. Yeah.
Wow.
He owns like a mascot company now that he's like a consultant for mascots nationwide.
No shit. Good for him.
Yeah. He revolutionized the game. Dave Raymond is his name.
If you want to be on the show, Dave. email
Yeah,
us
we'll
at
happily have a
Dissecting the
conversation with Dave Raymond. Yeah. So anyway, Stallone tries to retire. Clubber Lang shows up and just does a straight up wrestling move of being like, "You punk, you won't fight me. Come on, get out here." And so Stallone is like,
Rocky
meh.
pulls a
And-
Prince Eric and gets a statue and immediately is like, thanks, but here's a big turd. I'm gonna retire. Thanks for the statue, but I'm retiring. Like, hey, do you want to wait maybe a week? Like, don't do it at the statue unveiling.
Yeah, it feels like read the room, pal.
Yeah, good old misogyny. TM.
So he goes after Rocky, and Rocky is like shrugging him off, and then he starts trying to be like, "Hey, Adrian, why don't you come sleep with a real man?" And then Rocky's like, "Had it." Meanwhile, Mickey is trying to be like, "Hey, no, I'm not getting involved with this. I'm not going to do it." And he walks away. Rocky like has to be separated by cops from Clubber. It's a whole stupid thing. Also, though, we talked about this already about how this is basically wrestling, but it's also basically how like all modern combat sports work. Like UFC is much bigger than boxing now, but UFC fights, like in the months or weeks that lead up to it, it's all this same nonsense where it's like, "I'm calling you out. You're a punk. You couldn't last 5 minutes in there with
Really?
me." Oh yeah. The whole circus act of it is straight up UFC fights. Like it's exactly how those things go. It's very
It's so tiring.
well, like it's also ridiculous. Like it seems scripted to the point where you're like, wait, is this real? And then sometimes it bleeds over. Like that guy, a lot of people like him, Conor McGregor.
He's hot.
Well, he like threw a folding chair at somebody's bus, and like the police got involved. Yeah, it was crazy town. The guy beat the snot out of him last weekend, apparently. But anyway, all I'm saying is everything is wrestling now, apparently.
My whole life is wrestling.
Yeah. So Mickey talks to Rocky, and he lets Rocky know that he basically like sought out weak fighters for him, which Rocky doesn't react to in the way that I expect him to, which is to be really pissed off about that. Like Mickey basically duped him. He strung out fight after fight after fight that was people he knew Rocky could beat, and he's basically like, "I think you got soft and you can't hack it anymore, so I protected you, and I can't protect you from this guy because he's better than you." And it's just a crazy thing for your mentor to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, it also feels like what would like when you become a title holder like that. It feels like your next few bouts are just going to be with weaker people to like bolster the thing and be like, "Oh, look how he definitely is supposed to be the champion," and then you get dethroned.
Well, that's how it works in wrestling, but that is not necessarily how it works in professional combat sports, because it's like a ranking system, right? So you're the number one contender and you win the title, and then the next number one contender slides up. Generally, not always. Obviously, there are things like what you described.
I was gonna say. So are you like obligated to fight someone? Like if you have that champion belt, you're like, I'm done. Like if I get that, I'm out.
You
Like,
could retire.
No,
you
ma'am.
could absolutely retire. People do that. like win the championship and immediately retire. That's happened. I guarantee that's happened. I don't have like a statistic to cite for you, but boxing is weird because there's not one overseeing league. Basically, there's like several heavyweight championship belts that different organizations hold, and different boxers hold those belts. Whereas like UFC owns all the belts and all of the major level mixed martial arts fighting, so they decide who fights who. But in boxing, it's a lot.
There's also not a lot of rules in general, because I feel like half the time these characters should have been disqualified for fighting before the match.
Well, there's also a bunch of like wrestling. Like at one point, Clubber picks up Rocky with his arm and throws him into the corner, and then starts pummeling him. Like, you cannot pick up a guy with your arm in a boxing match. Like it's not okay.
That doesn't seem a thing. That doesn't seem a thing you should do.
So he basically begs Mickey for one more fight, and Mickey's like, all right, I'll give you one more shot at this thing. And they convene the camp where you're going to learn how to, like, not learn, but train how to learn how to fight this opponent, train for the match. And Rocky does this, like, insane Hollywoody pomp and circumstance that's open to the public. People are like, this woman kisses him while he's riding a bike. He's all sweaty. Paulie is, like, shilling robes and just, like, counting money.
I hate it. I hate it.
And it's like, Mickey's like, this is stupid. This is going to make you lose. And he's like, yeah, whatever. And he's just like casually pedaling. Meanwhile, we're intercutting this with pictures of, or rather video of Clubber Lang doing what Rocky did in the first two movies, which is like go to a sweat box and get angry. And so obviously we know he's going to lose. They telegraph it. It's like, we saw what happens when you train in a shitty sweat box.
Yeah. And, like, that to me is the annoying part of this movie. Like, Clubber Lang is written to be hated. But if you just watch and you're like, oh, no, he's, like, he's training as hard as he can to be the best that he can. I'm like, why can't, like...
Plus, the ultimate goal is entertainment. So I've always found it really weird when people get real crappy about flamboyance in their athletes. Because, like, in wrestling, it's usually the bad guy that's a flamboyant, cocky bad guy. And so, I mean, obviously that's part of it. But it's like, the whole point of boxing is entertainment, right? Like, maybe Rocky's your guy and you don't like Clubber, but if you were just like a neutral observer, I feel like you'd be entertained by his antics. They're ridiculous.
I think the difference is that, like, with Apollo, it's more of a showboat situation. And with Clubber Lang, it's more of like an aggressor type.
Maybe.
Like, I don't feel like Apollo's the, like, mouthing off, like, hey, Adrian, why don't you come sleep with a real man?
He totally would do that, though.
At least, I mean, again, Rocky 3 and 4 is my real foray into Apollo Creed, but, like, that Apollo seems just like, hey, look, I'm here to schmooze and charm and just make everyone love me.
Right. I don't know.
Also, I brought the singer.
James Brown?
Thank you. I was like, Brown, James Brown. Also, I brought James Brown with me.
You're fired.
Like, I forgot one name.
The other great moment I love, there's these two very odd moments. The first is the Bob Hope one. This is the second one where, and you brought this up earlier, talking about diegetic sound versus non-diegetic sound. The score from Rocky is playing, and then Mickey turns, and I hadn't noticed them, but in the background was like a full orchestra, and he's like, hey, shut up back there. Get a different tune. And it's like, wait a minute. And the people all kind of stop for a second, and they look around, and then they kind of like play a different song. But it's like, what? Why is this here? Why did you have a fourth wall breaking moment in the movie?
It's like almost fourth wall break. It's so weird. It's basically if Laurie Strode was like carving a pumpkin, like do 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 do
yes,
do do
yes,
do, do, do,
indeed,
do, do, do,
indeed.
Just like happily to herself. Like, that's not a thing. You can't do that.
So we fast forward to the fight. Clubber's like freaking out in his dressing room with a bunch of reporters, and they're like trying to get him to get a quote from him, and he just smashes some cameras.
Also, I wrote not enough Apollo. This is like the first real time we're seeing Apollo, and like not enough.
I literally wrote Carl Weathers is so effortlessly charming in this role.
I just can't not look at him and smile.
But it's also the absolute pinnacle version of someone playing the role of former player coming in to do or color commentary in for the match. He like hits all the cliches, but does so in a way that like you're supposed to hit them, right? Like he's supposed to be doing that.
Yeah.
It's the perfect performance of like, well, I'll tell you, I've been in the ring with this guy, and this is what I know. And it's just these like perfect little asides, and then like a couple of jabs at Rocky because they're friends now, and it's just so good, so wonderful.
Yeah, I wrote, it took too long for there to be a Creed movie, and it is a shame that the first Creed movie wasn't even about Apollo
Yeah.
because it was so
Yeah,
late.
indeed. So there's a pretty much ridiculous brawl backstage, and Mickey's grabbing his chest, and it looks like he's having a heart attack. And they put him in the locker room.
Couldn't it be Paulie? It could have been Paulie. It should have been Paulie.
Paulie should have had cirrhosis by now. The guy drinks. The only thing he drinks is liquor and beer in this whole movie. Mm-hmm. So Mickey's in the locker room and kind of shrugs it all off. He's like, "Let me catch my breath. Let me catch my breath. Get out there. Go get this over with. Don't call off the fight. Don't call off the fight." Which is insane.
Yeah, right?
So they get to the ring. Apollo Creed, for some reason, gets in the ring to give them like a little quick hello. And Clubber Lang is like, "I'm going to kill you." And Apollo does not care for it.
No. It almost... I was like, what exactly is Apollo supposed to be doing in the ring? Just like, hey guys, have a clean fight.
Yeah, there's
And just like shuffle, like sidle
There's just
out.
no reason for him to be in there. But so they fight, and it's like, lots of big haymakers and whatnot. Rocky just gets the snot kicked out of him. And as Rocky gets KO'd, we're like cutting back and forth between Rocky and Mickey. And Rocky's 10 count is the second that Mickey collapses and dies basically on the table.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He's alive enough for Rocky to get back there, but they like drag Rocky's shambling corpse back there. And he's like, "Mickey!" And
No, my favorite is the doctor goes, "Hey, Rock, we got to get him to a hospital immediately." And Rocky's like, "Hang on, I just got to talk to him
Yeah.
first." And I was like, no.
Yeah.
Like, let's...
the
Hospital.
doctor is literally like, he wouldn't go to the hospital. He's going to die. Like, he has to be at a hospital. And they're like, nah. So they have a quick chat where Mickey's like, "Kid, I love you. Goodbye." And that's it. That's the whole conversation between them.
Except it lasts for 5 minutes, and you can't understand any of it because Mickey is dying and Rocky is Rocky.
Yes. So Rocky expresses his grief by doing a motorcycle tour of Philly. And at one point, his motorcycle is at the top of the art museum steps.
I was so confused. I was like, wait
It's
a
like-
minute. Wait, are you at the top?
He is.
Are you at the backside that I don't know?
No,
Like, what is happening
no,
here?
no wonder they didn't want his stupid statue after he drove his motorcycle up the steps. I was picturing it
Yeah, they
like
conveniently left that part
after the
out.
Eagles won the Super Bowl, somebody drove a dune buggy up the art museum steps, and it was like, one, why do you have a dune buggy in Philadelphia? And two, oh my God, the art museum is such a nice place. Stop it.
Yes.
So Apollo pushes him to come back and is like, "Hey, you got to come back and train. I'm going to train you. It'll be a huge payday. We'll all make a ton of money. We gotta get back in the ring."
Was Eye of the Tiger a phrase before the song? Because they say it a lot as though it was.
I don't know. I guess so, right? Like, it seems like it would be a phrase in the popular lexicon.
It sounds kind of like it, but I've never heard it, so.
I mean, I've heard it since this movie came out, so I don't really know if it was I would guess that sounds like a phrase that was popular before the song was out. That's my hunch.
Yeah.
That sounds like a colloquialism. So I don't understand why Apollo is retired in this movie.
Because I think he just doesn't want to fight anymore.
Okay, that's okay if that's the reason. But I looked it up. I was so confused that I looked it up because the characters are like 1 year apart in age, and Rocky is still in good fighting shape.
Okay.
So I was confused as to how that would have happened, that he would have retired, unless you're right, maybe he just didn't want to fight anymore.
Yeah, I mean, if you escape with a face still that handsome, get out while you can.
Yeah, no, I guess that's a good point. The internet says it's well before the song, so I think we're good.
Okay.
So we get this montage of the tough streets of Los Angeles, which is where Rocky and Adrian and Paulie, what happens to the kid? I don't really know. The kid just
He stays at the house.
and doesn't come back into the movie ever. It's the same thing in Rocky
No,
4.
he's not important.
Oh, wait, no. In Rocky
not
4, he
important.
watches the fight at least. No, he is not. I get he's not important, but like he doesn't even watch the match later. There's no like emotional watching the match. It's just a weird thing that the kid is just like not in the movie anymore.
Well, they also didn't need Adrian in the rest of the movie because other than her beach speech, she doesn't talk. She just sits there in the background holding
Yeah,
things.
no, you're right. It's very weird.
I'm like, why is she there? Like, why did you think to put her there if she's literally not going to say anything?
I have no idea. But she comes to this boxing gym and she just like stands there. And I guess she's there for the other men to lust over, because there's like a segment where a bunch of these boxers are like eyeing her up, but that doesn't go to anything. And then Paulie just starts spewing racial nonsense. He doesn't ever use any racial epithets, but he basically does, and it sucks.
I hated it. I just wanted Polly to die.
Yeah, no,
I don't understand why he's still around. I don't get why he couldn't have died.
It doesn't make any sense. He's even in the sixth movie.
Dear God, die already.
Wait, no, maybe he's dead in the sixth movie.
Isn't the sixth one Rocky?
Rocky Balboa.
Or no, Balboa, yeah.
Because
it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then Balboa,
and then
right?
Creed.
And then Creed,
Right.
2. Back in the Habit.
Yeah, I can't remember if he's alive or... I feel like he's alive in Rocky 6. I don't know why I do. Yeah, no, he's credited in that movie. He's in it. He's there. That's right. He's dead in one of the Creed movies. I think in the Creed trailer, they show Paulie's grave, and I think I sent you a screenshot of it.
Yeah, he and Adrian are both
Right.
dead.
Well, Adrian's dead in Rocky Balboa.
Yes.
So it's a training montage, and it's like Rocky has lead feet and can't move, so Apollo is going to teach him how to move because Rocky can...
There is one thing that Polly says that I didn't hate, and that was that Rocky has no rhythm. And I was like, okay, that one's right.
Everything he says after that to justify why they shouldn't be trying to teach it to him is so bad, but that line's okay.
I said the one
No, I know.
And that is... Rocky has no rhythm.
Yes.
Period. That's the whole thing.
There are several other sentences around that are like, oh my God, can we please stop watching this racist goon?
Yeah, and why hasn't anyone hit him yet?
So they stick Stallone in a pool and he won't get his hair wet. Like, they don't say that in the movie, but Sylvester Stallone, the human, 100% does not want to get his hair wet.
Yeah, he it's very like one of those like breaststroke bobbing up.
It's
and
a
down
doggy paddle,
situations.
and he has his head up like he's the Loch Ness freaking monster. He 100% does not want to get his hair wet. Breaststroke.
I'm giving him some credit. I mean,
He is 100% dog paddling.
He's not swimming at all, really.
And
which makes me wonder if like Sly Stallone learned how to swim for this movie.
he genuinely is a great actor at not knowing how to swim if that's not the case.
Which makes me feel like he learned how to swim for this
Yeah,
movie.
no, I'm with you.
I've always wanted to learn how to swim. I'll just brought it into the movie.
So they're basically like, all right, you're going to have to win this fight early because this guy's stronger and faster and blah, 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 blah. And Rocky keeps having, like, through this whole thing, he's just, like, flashing back to the fight and freaking out and, like, not ready for this, not ready for this. And then finally, Adrian, who, by the way, is a saint. There's a scene where she's, like, trying to dry her hair in front of this just disgusting apartment that they're staying in. And, like, she can't. It's, like, the place sucks. She can't dry her hair. And she's like, well, it's at least we're together. Like, she's, like, such a...
At least the water's hot. We never had a real honeymoon.
Yeah, and I'm like...
This counts as a honeymoon.
This woman is a freaking saint. So they have, like... a training montage on the beach, and we find out that Rocky is just like mentally destroyed. Like, he just can't do this anymore. And like, he's racing with Apollo, and Apollo like keeps running, and he looks over his shoulder, and Rocky has just like stopped running and is standing there.
Yeah, I don't have the emotional connection with Rocky to like care that doesn't have self-esteem. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and it's also like, this is the thing that I have a big beef with in this movie, and I think it makes a lot of sense. So Rocky 2, and Rocky 4 are all underdog overachieves, is the story. This movie is about a champion losing his sense of purpose and then trying to figure out how to regain it. And I just don't think
that's not as interesting.
That's exactly right. I just don't think that narrative is as interesting a story. Like, underdog stories are compelling by their very nature. It's why the March Madness tournament is interesting to basketball people. Even if you don't like if you don't love basketball, there are plenty of people who enjoy watching that tournament for the upsets and the craziness. And I think that there's a real desire by most humans to watch underdogs succeed. It's like a joyous thing to watch. And in this one, you're just like, I don't know, Clubber seems to work harder than you. He seems to want it more. He's clearly had, a tough road to get to where he's at. He's beaten as many people as you've beaten. Why should I feel bad that he beat you? He beat you fair and square. Like, you didn't take it seriously and lost because you're a doofus.
Yeah, that's 100% what it feels like. Like, I don't care. There's no impetus for me to want Rocky to get his title back because what do I care?
Right.
You lost fair and square.
And you lost because you didn't put any effort in. It wasn't like, oh man, they went the distance and he was just a little better than you. It was like you blew it off because you thought you were the hot shit. Like you're the bad guy. You're the bad guy.
Like if Clubber had honestly, if Clubber had like cheated or something or done something super nefarious, I would be more inclined to be like, oh, it's a revenge story. But it's basically the movie Bolt.
The movie Bolt?
Yeah,
the dog movie.
The dog.
I thought that was like the dog finds out he's not real, but then he like saves the day anyway.
The whole thing is like he thinks he's a superhero, and then he finds out he's not at all a superhero and has to learn how to be a regular dog.
Oh, okay.
And like in the end, retires from acting.
I do remember that part. Okay, I remember that. Man, Bolt.
Like that. If the movie was, I know,
deep cut.
Like if the movie was Rocky finding out that like all his fights were rigged and he's not as big of a person, like he has to come to terms with, oh, I'm not I'm not actually a strong fighter, and like what does that world look like to him now? Like he walks to the Italian market and people are still like, hey, Rocky, and he's like conflicted. Like that's a movie, sure. But instead, it's like, I was never a good fighter, and now I have to be a good fighter. Like, I don't care.
And I also think that that narrative is really hard to make a compelling story out of, because even if it's, okay, Rocky, you were fed a bunch of weak fighters. Okay, fine, I'm going to train really hard and beat this guy. Like, it's still just him defending the title. This is a thing that they talk about. I can't believe I stopped watching wrestling. I don't know if people have noticed, but I really don't watch it anymore.
Could have fooled me.
Making less wrestling references, but this movie is so much wrestling. Like, there's a real thing to be said for the chase to the title is more interesting than the title. And for some wrestlers over the years, like they might have won the championship and only held it for brief times because the story of them getting to the top of the mountain was much more interesting than the story of them at the top of the mountain.
Makes
like
sense.
A bad guy having the title is much better for business, where it's like the good guy's got to vanquish this SOB versus like now the good guy's just champion forever and he keeps beating all the people who try to face him. You know what I mean? Like that story is less compelling. So
like a Marvel movie.
Exactly. So I think that's just what happened in this movie. It's like they had to make Rocky the underdog again, but he was the champion. So the only way to do that was make him lose. And the only way to make him lose was like, to have him lose to a legitimate competitor. And so I just like to have that choice is so weird. Like, you're right. He should have been a cheater, or there should have been a Rocky getting, tricked out of the title, or, something happens and it's just bad. It's just bad. So Adrian is like, hey, look, I moved to LA for this dumb thing. You can't just quit. And she gives this pretty nice speech. It's a nice moment for Talia Shire. And she gets to just give this like big impassioned, like, I gave up everything for you. What are we doing here? And him being like, I'm afraid. And she's like, well, suck it up because you're better than that.
You big
Yeah,
jamoke.
exactly. And that's a nice like tough love pep talk of like, look, believe in yourself or nobody else will. And it's nice. I get it.
I'm barely an effing character in this movie. So you're going to listen to my only monologue.
Exactly. So now we go to another montage and it's like, oh, Rocky's going to be good now. And so Carl Weathers, when they race, by the way, they have like they have a montage of like fighting and punching and blah, 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 blah. But when they get to like the big famous sexy running on the beach scene, Carl Weathers so obviously has to let Stallone beat him that it's hilarious. Like Stallone has his like if you just look at their shoulder, like they're both wearing tank tops, so you can see all the muscles in their necks and shoulders. Stallone's neck is like popping out veins, and his shoulders are like really, and he's sprinting. Carl Weathers has
Stallone looks so weird.
Oh, he's a bad runner. He does not have good running form, but also his shoulders are so big. No. I'm not sure he could do a good run form. But Carl Weathers is like casually jogging. Like he looks like he's working hard. It's like, you know how when
not even breaking
sweat. But you know how when a car is coming and you like put your head down and kind of fake run for 3 steps to make it look like you're trying to get through the crosswalk that you walk through illegally? You know what I'm talking about? Where you like
Yes.
you do a pretend run where you like your body looks like you're working really hard, but you've not actually increased the pace of your walking speed one iota. But you're like, oh, for this
No.
car, I'm going to make it look like I'm really trying. That's what Carl Weathers is doing. But conversely, Stallone is dying to beat him. Like he's. Ugh. So now it makes sense, the whole Carl Weathers like having that psychological edge thing. I kind of get it. Maybe that is why he was like secretly working out on Predator.
I believe it.
So they have a big sexy hug.
In the water.
Yeah, jumping around in the ocean, hugging each other, getting their shoes all wet. Because, sure, why not?
And we still have 30 minutes
To be
left.
fair, so much of it is the fight. And if you had told me you fast-forwarded through some of the fight, I wouldn't have been upset about it.
Oh, I definitely... So because this is on YouTube,
Yeah.
that means you can change the playback
Yeah.
speed. And I was like, oh, we're going to put this fight at 1.5
Yeah, and
because I just don't
And it also
care.
doesn't progress the narrative. Like, you know that he's going to win, so, like, how he gets there is not that interesting.
Yeah.
So they're back. I have to talk about this, and I know this is probably going to be lost on you. And I apologize for the listeners who are dedicated to this show. We've gotten a lot of new listeners lately, and so sometimes we're going to repeat stories, and I apologize when we repeat stories. But this is important, and it's relevant, so it's coming up here. We're backstage before the fight, and Carl Weathers walks in and is like, I got a gift for you. And he opens up his box, and inside are the red, white, and blue trunks that he wore in Rocky 1. This is the start of the Brotherhood of the Traveling Punch Pants that is the secret meta-narrative hidden within the Rocky films. Because, do you remember when we flew on the plane and I drank a lot of bourbon and you looked over and you saw me crying?
Yeah, because I was also crying at Steel Magnolias.
Well, I was crying at the scene in Creed where Creed's son, who was like a half, he was a,
Midweight.
no, he was a, out of wedlock. Apollo Creed,
Bastard.
a bastard child, I guess. But Apollo Creed acknowledged him, but it was like his son with a different woman he cheated on his wife with. And so when he met Adonis Creed, Adonis Creed met his mother, Apollo's wife, she was like, I don't want anything to do with you. And then there's like this really emotional moment where she sends him the shorts and is like, go get it, kid. I didn't remember that this exact same scene happened in Rocky 3, but these shorts were worn by Apollo in the first movie, Rocky in Rocky 3, and then Creed in the first Creed movie. The exact same shorts are worn by all three of these men. And it's also a scene that this exact scene of like, hey, it's time for the fight. I got a present for you. This exact scene, now to be fair, influenced by 35,000 feet of air travel and bourbon, made me cry. Like I teared up and genuinely got emotional at this sequence in Creed. And here I laughed out loud like a cackling idiot because like, why would they want to wear each other's pants? And also he's like, you better wash them before you give them back to me. And he's like, oh, what's a wash? Like it's so stupid. Why is this here? But also, it's the Brotherhood of the Traveling Punch Pants, and they don't acknowledge that in the other one, and it pisses me off. They should absolutely have had Rocky be like, I want a title of these pants.
Yeah, but I think the real... I don't think Adonis is like, wow, that means so much that you also won a title in these pants that my father wore.
I'm saying it should have been like a second, like there should have absolutely been a casual line of there probably is, and I forgot it, but there should be a casual line of dialogue when they're walking to the ring where he's like, hey, nice shorts, and he's like, thanks, and he's like, I want a title in those, you know, and then like they acknowledge it and walk forward. That's all I want. I don't want it to be like weepy.
That's fine. That's fair.
Anyway, this is where the genesis of Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants comes from, because this movie invented UFC, created the idea for the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, and also is full of racists.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair third one.
Also, the Marine Corps band is not appropriate pre-fight music.
I mean, I don't know what is appropriate.
I want some like loud. I want some like loud rock music. I want these guys to be like jacked up on adrenaline. I don't want them to be like, it's a grand old flag, it's a high flying flag.
I don't think the Marine Corps band exclusively plays like John.
They literally were playing John Philip Sousa songs. They play It's a Grand Old Flag in this movie. Yes.
Oh, did they?
I wasn't doing a bit. That's actually a song in the movie. It's like blah 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 blah. I'm like, what? Like, can we get some Thunderstruck? Like, how about a Back in Black? I want some AC/DC. I want some Metallica. Give me a song that's scary.
I guess that's fair. We also got some real ham-fisted costuming where Rocky enters the ring in a white satin robe, and Clubber Lang heads up to the ring in a black satin robe.
Do you get it?
And I was like,
get it?
Darren Aronofsky is taking furious notes for Black Swan.
Yeah.
Loved Black Swan. Hated that costuming.
So before the fight starts, Clubber Lang shoves Apollo, and then there's a big like scuffle in the ring.
Feels like it should be a disqualifier.
Yes, 100%. So Rocky comes out with like a hot start, and then there's a lot of punches in this second fight that miss by a mile. Like they're not even close. They're very, 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 very badly choreographed. And I will say that like the boxing in the Rocky movies is always absurd because it's all knockout punches, but it's generally well choreographed. This is probably the worst choreographed fight scene in any of the Rocky movies that I remember. I've never seen Rocky 5,
very sloppy.
so it could be worse there.
But you've seen Rocky 6?
Yeah. Rocky 6 was I was in college, it was like the sequel coming out, and I also got to review it for the paper, and it turned out to be like a good time at the movies. Rocky 5 might have been direct-to-video.
Oh.
It probably wasn't, but it feels like a direct-to-video movie. Anyway, there's a Punch-a-Palooza, and then they get to Eye of the Tiger, and
Rocky also fully spits on Polly, and it's my favorite moment.
It is
cinema.
pretty delicious that he does that. I was very happy with that.
Like Polly's holding the spit bucket, and Rocky fully is just like, "Patoo!" all over his shirt. Take that, you racist.
Rocky 5 was not direct-to-video, but it did star Stallone's actual son as his son in the movie. And weirdly, the original director came back for that.
Really?
Yeah.
That seems weird.
So Rocky has a strategy which is basically get punched a lot of times and then let him tire himself out a bit, which is a real sound boxing strategy when you're not punching someone whose punches sound like cement blocks being hurled at a wall.
Yeah.
And then we get an endless flurry of Rocky punches, which leads to a knockout, and everybody's very happy that Rocky has won his title again.
Yay! There's some terrible Adrian ADR, and then a weird codpiece ending.
Well, they're legitimately groin protectors for boxing, but yes, they are basically wearing David Bowie and Labyrinth codpieces, and it's Apollo and Rocky having a secret fight in the boxing gym when no one else is there because Apollo needs to know he can beat him.
It's so bizarre.
And extremely homoerotic.
But thank God this movie's over.
Yeah, we made it. We survived Rocky 3. Final thoughts?
I don't know. It's not as, Rocky 4 is at least fun to me. Like, the robot, Ivan Drago. The death of Apollo Creed feels more, impactful to me and a better impetus than, Mickey died. Polly's still around.
Right. I actually got into, kind of a fight recently when I was no, legitimately Rocky 4 is my favorite movie in the entire series. And the person was like, the first one won an Academy Award. And I'm like, yeah, but it's a kind of slow movie. Rocky 4 is amazing. It's so goofy. He literally beats communism single-handedly with punches.
Rocky 4 starts at a 10, ends at an 11.
Yeah, exactly. It's hey, we know what you're here for. Montage, punching.
You're here for Sylvester Stallone in American flag shorts beating communism so hard that Russia salutes him.
And there's really a distinct reason why after Rocky 4 someone made Rocky versus Predator and even cast Carl Weathers in it. That is the logical next step for Rocky 4.
I wish. God, I wish.
Yeah, Predator is just basically a Rocky movie.
Yeah, no, I know. It's Rocky in the Jungle.
I'm with you, though. I would not recommend this movie. I think Rocky 4 is legitimately worth your time. I think Rocky 1 is worth your time. Creed is a fabulous movie. It helps if you're familiar with Rocky, obviously, because Stallone's a big part of it, and it's sort of like a last gunfighter situation where he obviously can't box anymore, but he's, helping out Creed and training him. I think it's an awesome movie. I really, really like it. Ryan Coogler is amazing, and I will watch pretty much anything he does. And I think that I just forgot his name. the dude in black.
Michael B.
Yes,
Jordan?
Michael B. Jordan is an awesome actor. Love everything he's been in. I'm sorry that I forgot his name. So yeah, I think I'm excited for Creed 2. I'm very curious to see how that is, but do not watch Rocky 3, although it is available for free on YouTube, along with, I think, the entire Rocky franchise, but not Creed.
That's
At
fair.
least Rocky 4 and 2 are on YouTube. I didn't look for all of them.
I think Rocky 2, 3, 4, and 5 are.
Okay.
It's a weird mix of movies that are available that YouTube bought the rights to. It's like Legally Blonde
Yes.
2, 4 of the Rocky movies.
The 4 sequels. Yeah, YouTube,
Yeah.
only sequels, no originals.
That feels like a weird Netflix, like a version of Netflix. Like, not the first one.
That's basically all streaming services.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for listening to the show. We really appreciate that. If you'd like to support us a little more than that, there's 2 things you can do. The first one, absolutely free. Review the show wherever you get it. We really appreciate those reviews, and we read them on the air. Second is check us out on Patreon. It's patreon.com/dissectingthe80s. We have, for just $5 a month, you get extra bonus episodes of the show. You would get the first one right now and the second one next month. And if enough of you do that, you get another one as soon as possible, basically. So there is a lot of cool stuff up there already and more stuff being added, monthly newsletter, all sorts of fun stuff. So please jump on there and check it out if you haven't done that yet. We would really appreciate that. It helps us pay for the show. In fact, listeners of this show have already given us enough to change the way that we host this show, which is great because we were starting to panic about whether or not we were going to stay on the iTunes store. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. And that is all thanks to the listeners of this show, which is really, really cool. Woo. So thank you for that, all of our Patreon supporters. Also get in touch with us on Facebook, on Twitter. It's at Dissect the 80s on Twitter, Dissecting the 80s on Facebook. And we always love to get listener emails. That's dissectingthe80s@gmail.com. Thank you all so very much for listening to the show. We will be back with everybody's favorite holiday on November 19th to celebrate the wonderful Tom Hanks and T. Hanksgiving. We are jumping on stage with Tom Hanks and Sally Field for Punchline, a movie I've never seen before, but which turns 30 this year.
Interesting.
Yeah, Tom Hanks as a talented young comic who helps a housewife played by Sally Field who wants to break into stand-up comedy. Basically the Marvelous Miss Maisel, I think.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm excited to do that. So we'll be back for that. Thank you once again for listening to the show. I have been Trip Lano.
I will always be Andrew
Until
Lano.
November 19th.
Don't you forget about me.
Dissecting the 80s is a Chum Some of This production.